Yes, so my name is Dorian van Rijsselberghe, or in Dutch van Rijsselberghe, but it's a lot of throat. I grew up, born and raised in Holland or the Netherlands, on a tiny island. We have kilometers in Holland, so it's about 33 kilometers long and 15 wide. And I was born and raised on a organic, small dairy farm.
Really cool. And then why windsurfing? Why, obviously you lived on an island, so I guess all sort of boating activity was popular, but why windsurfing?
Well, I started windsurfing when I was 6, and the reason why I started was my dad and I have a 4-year older brother, and every weekend, every summer, we drove to the beach, and we were there all day, every day. My mom would read a book on the beach and lie there, and my dad, for as long as I can remember, would always be out on the water and come in, have a little snack, and back out on the water again. And next in line was my brother, so he got into it. And then, yeah, quite naturally, as a curious young boy, you're like, they seem to really enjoy that. Maybe I need to try that as well. Yeah, when I was 6, I told my dad I want to learn how to windsurf, and he said, okay, we can do that, but first you need to get your swimming diploma license so you can't drown. And so I got that, and after I had that, I was allowed to go on the water.
So you jumped in, and you told me like your brother actually was a little bit more passionate about it than you were, because he would sail in all weather. At what point, at what age, we talk about like the hero's journey and having this vision, and the first of like achieving something great, and the first phase for a hero is like the call, like, hey, like I could actually do something with it. Like, how old were you? Where were you? What can you tell us about like when you got the call to be an Olympic athlete or go as far as you can?
Well, like you said, at the start of windsurfing, from pretty much when I was 6 until I was 13, I couldn't care less. I had a nice time, and I really enjoyed it when it was nice and when the circumstances were good, and I was not cold. As you can understand, it's not always nice weather in Holland. It's kind of like here in Vancouver, quite rainy at times. But around the age of 13, we did some very small local club competitions, and I was competing against these adults, and it wasn't like I was getting lapped or like really far behind. We were kind of in the middle, sometimes even closer to the front. So you start to figure, I can compete with these older guys. This is fun. As soon as you have success anywhere, things become a lot more interesting. So from the little club competition, we went to the mainland, and we had this one very, very vivid memory for myself. Is we ended up in the middle of winter. It's called the Icicle Trophy, and there was a trophy when I was about 13, and from the floor it was about like that big. It was huge. It was almost eye to eye with the top of the trophy. And I looked at my dad and I told him, that's my goal. I'm taking that home at the end of the week. So all of a sudden, a switch went on in my head, and I saw what I wanted to achieve, and I put everything into it that week. Obviously, you got to defeat the other opponents, but I managed to pull everything out of my tippy toes and perform the way I wanted to get the trophy.
Fantastic. So you get this trophy that's almost as big as you are. And then when did you start setting your eyes on Olympics?
Well, that was not long after I started to really feel like, I can achieve things that I would like to achieve. I believed in myself. That's the first biggest thing. From the age of 6 all the way to 13, there was always windsurfing going on in my mind, and it definitely interested me. But not to the extent that I really knew what I wanted. And until I was 13, after that big moment, I realized, okay, this is a path that I want to go down. Why not? I'm a kid. I'm 13 years old. What's the highest achievable goal within the windsurf sports? And that's the Olympic Games. Every 4 years, the Olympics are held. And windsurfing is an individual sailing sport, and it is during the games. So I told my dad I want to go to the Olympics and I want to win a gold medal. And he told me, as a very loving father, okay, that is quite ambitious, but who am I to say no? We wrote down a plan at the time. But when I say wrote down a plan, I'm a little younger than nowadays. So we worked it all out in Word, and we put a plan together until 2012 in London. And I would be around the age of 23 at that time, 21, 22, 23. And Olympic gold medal. We typed it all out in Times New Romance, and there it was.
You remember the font.
Yeah.
You just made a comment where you said, I always had windsurfing in my brain. And I want to check in on that. Like, when you say it was in my brain, like, were you thinking about windsurfing? Like, were you seeing yourself on the water, or is that maybe just
for a kid, when you get really into something, all of a sudden everything turns into windsurfing. So staring outside the window in my classroom, looking at the trees to see if they're moving, looking at my watch to see what time I'm out and can bike to the place, to the windsurf club, to meet up with my brother to go windsurfing. Every weekend we would go to the mainland, take the ferry, stay over there, go to competitions.
It really just became all consuming.
And it wasn't just me, because obviously achieving success is one thing that you need to be focused and driven, but you need the right support around you. And I was very fortunate that I was born in the family that I was, with a 4-year older brother that was able to push me ever along. And I was always trying to reach to his level of achievement. And the same would be for my parents, that we in Holland, it would be not very common, but a lot of people would go to an all-inclusive hotel during the holidays in Turkey or in some other place. But we went to a World Championships in Belgium, which is the next country down. So it wasn't all exotic and over the moon. But we had the best of times. We would rent a little house together or a little apartment and go as a family and spend 2-3 weeks in the place where we need to compete.
So part of achieving a vision, part of achieving a dream, like I said, this hero's journey concept, inevitably what we see in a hero trying to achieve something like a gold medal is they can hit some obstacles. They can hit real or perceived obstacles. And in the hero's journey, it's actually called the pit of despair when you hit the obstacle. And some people make it out and some people don't. But you made it out. So what would you describe as some of the obstacles that you had to overcome in pursuit of this vision, of this dream that you had for yourself?
To be quite honest, in my younger years, before the 2012 Olympic Games, I didn't have too many obstacles. I think that partially has to do with my mindset. So I managed to go to 2 Olympics. The first one was 2012, and the second one was in 2016. The first one, I was a young, I would say, boy that was happy-go-lucky. Just everything always kind of fell into the right spot, and my glass was never half empty. That was really wonderful. But then after the 2012 games, I fell in love. I got married. I got a beautiful daughter after the 12 games. And all of a sudden, my life became a lot more complicated and not necessarily more problematic in a way, but definitely with more hurdles to overcome and problems to face. And one of those big hurdles would be my relationship with my wife, managing and telling her when I need to go away, when I need to come back. And, for me, that was a whole new ball game that I needed to control.
that all of a sudden you had an extra set of less distractions or
Yeah.
responsibilities. You know, when Rick was competing, we always used to say, like, he's in the bubble. Like, you can't, you know, when he's in the bubble, you don't touch him or you don't talk to him, you don't bring up any big problems. So
Yeah.
just navigating how to protect your competitive bubble is what you would say was a big obstacle.
Not just a competitive bubble. When it almost, yeah, like for Rick, when you're away in the competition mode, and that was quite clear that there was no major distractions. However, to find that balance of traveling for 8 months a year and being home for the rest of the 4 months, it's not that I'm gone 8 consecutive months, but it's in, out, 3 weeks away, 2 weeks back, 2 weeks away, 1 week back, 3 weeks home.
Got it.
And that switch, making my emotional balance and the balance between my wife and me and raising a child, that was very difficult to overcome.
One of the things you talked about when we talked is like, you know, you talked about just now, you said the first Olympics was like you were a bit of a boy, and then the second Olympics, obviously, you were a man with responsibilities, a family, a child. But there was also sort of a time where you really, you indicated that you did have to switch from sort of being this golden boy to recognizing that responsibility lay on your shoulders in a new and different way. Like, can you tell us a little bit about that growth within yourself of going from like the golden boy to being like, oh, actually, I bear some responsibility in this life and in this path?
Yes, it has to do with an event for myself that occurred. I was competing at before the World Championships in 2013, and at these World Championships there was one particular mark rounding, as we have with sailing, and I was coming around the top mark, and I'm not going to go too technical, but I'll describe the situation. I was coming around the top mark, and there was another Polish windsurfer that was coming the opposite way. So this is me, and this is the Polish windsurfer. And we were on collision course, and we actually did collide. He was in the wrong, I was in the right. It was quite straightforward, starboard port. So some a little nautical, but it was very distressing, because with that collision, he, unfortunately, I don't think he did it on purpose, but he was definitely not, in my opinion, doing everything to avoid the situation. He nearly took out my legs at the water. I yelled at him, and I told him, you know, I cussed a little, and I told him to go home. And then I came back to the beach, and I realized that, okay, what just happened? I started to reflecting on my incident, and I realized that I could have broken my leg. And okay, broken your leg, it's not the end of the world. And then, okay, how many legs do I need to windsurf? I need 2. Okay. And what does it implement if I can't windsurf? All right. Holy hacker. Like, it's a lot of stuff. Yeah, I can't windsurf. I can't perform. I needed to perform at those World Championships to make my yearly criteria to get my salary or my funding. So all of a sudden, it was like it trickled down to what it would actually implement for me to, you know, not perform or have an outside something happen to me that I wouldn't be able to provide. And yeah, that was quite a, would you call that a
aha moment?
An aha moment, yes. And I really noticed in my own mind, it's like, okay, Dorian, you're not just you anymore. You have a daughter, you have a wife, you have responsibilities. If you can't windsurf, then you need to figure something else out, because you know you gotta pay rent. Figured out that I didn't want to do anything else, and I wanted to keep paying rent windsurfing. So I I flipped the switch and I said, okay, I gotta do everything in my power not to have that happen again, and also to really perform at these worlds. And I ended up winning those world championships by a landslide.
I love that. Would you say, I'm totally going out on a limb here, would you say your first, so I did a terrible introduction in the beginning, but I did email everybody and let them know that you are the gold champion of the 2012 London Games and the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Games. Is it a fair statement to say that the 2012 London Games, you know, you were sort of competing for yourself, and that 2016, maybe the motivation was a bit different?
Oh, 100%. I think, like I said in the beginning, and here I'll dangle them, I'll pass them by when I'm talking, but this medal was all about the childhood dream, all about me going to the games and thinking that I can achieve whatever I dream of. And that was really special. But then the next Olympics, it was all of a sudden like, okay, you know, I achieved my goal. This was what I wanted. What do I want to do now? And I thought hard and I was like, well, I want to do it again. And I want to see what are the challenges that will come on my path and what do I need to overcome. Yeah, it was definitely a different motivation to do it again and to, you know, make it work than to fulfill the first dream.
Take us to the moment when you, I don't know, take us to that podium moment. Like a lot of people, some people, I don't know, not a lot, but people talk about a podium moment. I call that a champagne moment, where like they're literally playing your national anthem. I'm wearing the orange because every time I see Dorian, he's wearing orange, you guys. So this is a bit of an inside joke. So take us to the moment, first Olympics, you're standing on the podium, they're playing your national anthem. Like, what did that feel like? What was that moment like?
This is a very big question. There's multiple facets of this moment. And first thing I'm going to say, before I landed on that podium, and we had a talk about this beforehand, I was on that podium already many times. What do you say, like, okay, you were on that podium physically? It's like, no, I was on that podium mentally. A moment before the Olympics, I was talking to an older American coach, and he said, Dorian, I'm going to tell you one thing. You seem like you're on the right track to win a gold medal or an Olympic medal here in London. For you to be able to do that, I'm going to give you one trick that did really well for myself, and that's visualizing. And I was like, okay, so what am I visualizing? He's like, you're visualizing yourself on top of that podium over and over and over and over again. And you got to go down to that feeling. You're not just going to be looking at it, but you're going to go think about what kind of feeling it's going to give you. On top of the podium, you're going to have that feeling, but also during your racing. So you got to visualize the racing as well. I got more and more comfortable and more in the right mindset of hunting down where I needed to be in my mind to achieve the goal that I wanted. A little bit. So that was the mental aspect of being on top of that podium. The physical aspect of it was that we had a lot of dress rehearsals, as we call them, World Cups in that same body of water, same races, same competitors, same everything. Somebody decided that once every 4 years, this is a very special event. And all of a sudden, to get to the boat park, you have to pass guys with fully dressed up body
Armor.
armor
The security
vest.
for the Olympics.
They're standing there with guns and you have to go through metal detectors. But once you're out in the water, everything's the same. So we had a lot of dress rehearsals, and I had certain successes during those dress rehearsals. There were 3 competitions leading up to the Olympics in the years before that. Every competition I was on the podium. I won, I was second and third. So I knew what to expect and where to go.
It was just very familiar to you.
Yeah.
And in some ways, standing on that podium, you're like, been here, done that.
It is quite funny because windsurfing and sailing is a little bit like golf. So you're competing for a whole 7 days. There is a rest day in the middle that you need to relax and you can regroup a little bit. And at the last day, this is how it used to be. There was one single race on the last day, and you compete for double the points. So if you are first, you get 2 points. If you're second, you get 4 points. If you get third, 6, etc., etc. And you only race the top 10. So your worst result could be 20 points, and that would be 20th place. I was very fortunate and lucky enough, and I guess skillful enough, that before the last race, I would have such a big lead to number 2 that even if I would be 20th and he would be first, I would still win the competition. So I was already certain of my gold medal, not just any medal, but the gold medal, before the competition was done. That really made me enjoy the moment a lot more. Like, I had 3 days to celebrate my Olympic gold medal, which was kind of funny, but there's different ways of celebrating an achieved goal. And for me, it was more going inwards, like satisfaction from the inside, feeling achievement, accomplishment, sharing that with my coach on the water, because it was a particular moment, not necessarily on the stage where you realize, oh, you've won, but it was a little mathematical equation on the water. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and I'm like, what? And he's like, you did it. And I'm like, you sure? He's like, yeah, you've got more than 20 points lead. So whatever happens in the next 2 days, don't worry about it. You're Mr. van Rijsselberghe. You are the Olympic gold medal, sitting in the boat with just him. Nobody else is around. Nobody can talk to you. Everybody's out of earshot. So that is a very intimate moment with just the two of us. And then that's an inward celebration. And then on the podium, it is an outward celebration that you can stand and raise your arms and look at people and celebrate it that way. But because the inward celebration was for me so much more than the extrovert celebration on the stage, it was just a really nice pat on the back.
That's so beautifully said, because I don't think we actually get to hear enough of that side of a champion's experience, right? Is that quiet moment. And props to your statistician coach who knows the numbers. I mean, that really always makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about your mindset. Like you said, like, I've always been glass half full. And like, what I know about you is you really are a very happy-go-lucky human being, love to crack jokes. How did you get so lucky to have such a great mindset? Like, what can you tell us about your mindset?
Well, I don't know. I think, some people are just wired that way, and other people are not. I don't need to tell you, but my beloved wife is wired a different way, and she's a little bit more pessimistic at times. An overachiever and an amazing goal chaser, but just a little bit more. Are you sure the glass is half full? Because it looks half empty, and then you're like reinsuring, and then it is half full. But I think for what I used to do with the windsurfing, it is a very metaphorical way of looking at it. But when you're out on the water and then reflecting back to life, it's the same. It's a parallel path. But when you're out in the water, you have to use the wind, you have to use the current, you have to use the waves, you have to look at it and not go, oh, that wind gust hit me the wrong way, and that was it. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. The wind does always what it's supposed to do, and that's whatever the wind wants to do. So there's two ways of utilizing a gust of wind. One is tacking over and adjusting your course equivalent to the most profitable way to get out of there. And the other one is to put your head down and bear away with the gust and go the wrong way. So this is a little bit my mindset in my life. Is something, I get a gust, I get a header, I tack over, I gotta look into it. And sometimes it takes a little longer than other times, but when one door closes, another one opens. And that, in my opinion, that's how you can look at a lot of things.
Oh, it's fantastic. It really is. It's almost like you've been trained from a young age to just like see those gusts of winds as either something that you're going to bear into and probably crash out, or like an opportunity to respond to it. Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like professional athlete retires, with retirement sort of comes a transition. Yeah. At the beginning, Dave Tarkowski here on the call talked a little bit about sort of having to navigate some change in his career. What can you tell us about your transition, about change, what you've been telling yourself? Yeah, how's it been?
It's been real interesting. A lot of people, like, they talk to me and they are wondering because they know me through the professional circuit of windsurfing, and then the next moment they're like, "What are you doing? Like, I see you with the kids, and you're not traveling that much anymore, or what are you doing?" And now when I introduce myself, I am Dorian, and they ask me, "What do you do for a living?" As I'm Mr. Mom. That's me. And I laugh at myself because it's not the right way of wording it. And there's nothing wrong with being Mr. Mom. But from going from an Olympic champion to Mr. Mom is quite different. Like, it's not wrong or right, but it's definitely really different. And I think for me, a big way of how I did cope with that, and I am at peace with it, is that I achieved my childhood dream. Then afterwards, I did it again on my own terms, consciously into this process of the 2016 games. So not just be like, all right, happy-go-lucky kid, achieved it, Rio Games, set my mind to it, pace it out, step it out, and make step by step, make it happen again. And that ego of the Olympic gold medalist is fulfilled. That is done. That is okay. I don't go out wherever and I meet somebody new and I'm like, well, this boy over here, we got 2 medals and I used to, compete, and that's me. Because it's not. Now I'm Mr. Mom, and it's a whole different way of achieving goals, but there is still so many goals with these 2 little buggers that I'm trying to control and trying to make the house run like a tight ship, scrub the deck, wash the floors.
What do you mean why are you applying your sailing methodology here? You can't control them. They are the wind. They are.
Yeah, well, they are more than the wind. They're like tsunamis and tidal waves and all of those things. And sometimes you just got to hold on and bear with it for a moment. But yeah, it's a change. However, for me personally, again, my achievement with my sports athleticism is achieved. That ego is fulfilled, and now I can work on other things in my life that I have neglected for a long time, and not in a negative way, but just things that I like to develop more now.
So you've sort of like done a beautiful job of like weaving in, like you said, like the parallel of sailing and life. Tell, like, in your mind, when you hear me say this metaphor of sailing and being a leader, like, what is the correlation? Like, what do you see as the connection between sailing and leadership? Like, what is it important for us leaders to remember that lessons that we can learn from the sail that we could take into our leadership?
Well, there's a reason why you asked me to be here, and there's a reason why in a lot of ways a ship and a company are similar. There needs to be somebody at the helm. There needs to be somebody, needs to be the captain. Somebody needs to work the sail. Somebody needs to work all the different aspects of the company / ship. So there's so much correlation with how a good ship or a good company, you can interchange those words, right? It's either ship or company, doesn't matter. How to make them run and how to get the maximum performance out of something. When you're on a boat and somebody doesn't, it's the most cheesy and the easiest way to say it, but if somebody doesn't scrub the deck and the deck is dirty and somebody needs to rush in a panic situation to the front of the boat and he slips, breaks his back, breaks his leg, I don't know, it doesn't matter. It's a domino effect.
So safety is important.
Well, safety is important, but it also, if somebody slips literally in your company and drops the ball, then that has a consequences all the way to the top. And you want to have the base covered with the everyday mechanicals maybe, or just the basic things. If your basic package is not working properly, then I'm looking at myself and I see a stack of cards, and if the base is not done properly and wide enough and good, then you won't be able to put any more cards on top of it.
You can't grow. You can't grow.
You can't grow. And just like in a company, there's hierarchy. Somebody has the say in the end, but like a ship, somebody can be at the helm and steering in the direction that you need to be steering, but it doesn't mean that that person's in control and the captain of the ship. So there is multiple ways of looking at it.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think what really stood out for me is what you said before about the wind, and like the wind does what the wind wants to do. And how you respond to the wind is what really makes the difference in winning or like bailing out, I guess, hey?
Yeah. And it's another thing there is that it only takes one person to recognize a change in course or change in the wind. And for that person to open their mouth and to communicate that is crucial, is very important. Not everybody sees the same way or is looking the same way. And if that person can address that and make other people aware, it's like, hey, I think this is something that's going to happen, then everybody can adjust their sails and change course to the necessary way.
Awesome. Well said. So speaking up, calling out what they see is critical.
And sometimes you see something, sometimes you think you see something. And that's what it's a beautiful thing on the boat, that when you have more than one person, you can have a small discussion about it, and you have multiple eyes on it, and you can come up with a good plan.
Yeah, I like that. I call that collective wisdom in the room, right? More brains are better than one. So we were joking as everybody came back about the fact, what people don't know is that you were like, oh, should I share my medals? And I was like, yeah. You're like, I don't know where they are. And
I had to open multiple drawers in the wife's office.
Yeah. So, and then I was like, what are you going to do with them? And you're like, well, I'd like to have them out so people can touch them.
I wish I could pass them around to everybody, because that's one of my favorite things to do. This is the Rio one, which still looks gold, and then this is the London one, which looks like it's bronzish. And if you would be here and you would hold these medals, that they're quite heavy, and people would always be very impressed with how heavy they are. And I said, don't worry, it's plated gold. It's worth about $600. But yeah, they are. I had to restitch this, or somebody restitched this for me at the Holland Heineken House. Now, if you ever go to an Olympics and there is a Holland Heineken House, go. It is absolutely bonkers there. And then this one, yeah, they are worn, torn, partied with. This is the ticket to go into any nightclub.
Anywhere you want.
Anywhere you want, doors will open for you. It's hilarious. But like I said, it is really fun for me to share in a way like that, giving them to somebody and seeing their expression on their face, like, whoa, you just give them out like that? It's like, yeah, because that's what I like to do, and that gives me satisfaction to see somebody being surprised, and maybe even inspired.
Tell us just, and we'll finish it with that. It's just like, why do you think it brings so much joy to people? Why do you get joy out of seeing people touch them, but like, what do you think that evokes for people when they hold on to that medal?
Well, it doesn't get more more materialistic in a way of achieving a goal. You would almost think that you should get a medal if you achieve a goal at the end of the year in your business. I know there are certain ways of doing that, but I think something as solid as a medal and being able to touch it, and I guess then with everything just only once every 4 years, they're quite something. It has a lot of, how would you call that?
Symbolism.
Yeah, it's the value that everybody puts on it that makes it so special.
Right. It's like a shared value.
Yes.
Yeah.
A shared standard of value, because sure, if you present a world championship medal, people are going to be impressed. I mean, that's definitely something. But then the next level is an Olympic medal, and that's more impressive, or just people hold it in higher regard.
Yeah, very true. Thank you, Dorian, so much for sharing your story. While we're on this topic, I'm going to challenge everybody in this call right now to think about and write down, if you can. I know there's going to be a few who be like, I need more time to think about this. None of us are going to the Olympics. Sorry to say, team. I don't know, maybe you guys have some secrets up your sleeve, but like, what could be a version of a gold medal moment in your own career? What is something that you could look to achieve in your leadership or your career? Let's call it in the next year, 3 years. What is like your own version of a gold medal moment, accomplishment, goal? Just take a minute right now and see what you can come up with, or just write the question down so that you can come back and think about it. Dorian, while they're writing, we will say goodbye. We will say thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your time today. That was fantastic. And I do hope that I can touch and hold the medal one day.
I'll bring them over one day. You can have a look at them.
Perfect. That would be so fun for the kids to see. Well, thank you so much again. And we'll say goodbye to Dorian, and we'll keep everybody else online. Have a great day, Dorian.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck.